Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this very interesting session. Very well gender balanced session, as you can see. One guy bringing the balance here, so I'll do my best. And it's a pleasure to have a conversation with these 5 ladies, who incidentally are all my friends. Give them a round of applause. And when I say conversation, I mean conversation. I use that word advisedly. I'm not going to be talking about their CVs. You can go to their LinkedIn and, I think what I'm trying to do today is to have a conversation with these ladies in such a way that we can take out nuggets that will help us in our careers, in our professional development. But I want to do it in a fun way so that we can all have fun while we do it, and the ladies themselves can have fun at the same time. I sent them an email and I said to them, you're expecting me to send you questions and say, I'm going to ask you this, I'm going to ask you this. And the email had all kinds of graffiti on it, just to send that vibe that, look, it's going to be a fun conversation. We have talking points, but I prefer that people should speak from the heart, not prepared texts. So on that note, I would like to welcome the panelists. Amara, you're sitting in the wrong place. Mo, I think you are here.
Oh, right beside you?
Yes, right beside me. I don't know, it's the way they arranged it. Don't mind my OCD. So, I would like to introduce Mo. Mo, just say one thing. Just let them hear your voice.
Hi.
Fair enough. And I'd like to introduce Soibi. Just test the mic.
Hello, everyone.
Great. And Foza.
What's up, guys?
Perfect. Amara.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here.
Pleasure. Inemesit.
Hi, family.
Pleasure, pleasure. So we're going to keep these answers short so that we can talk a little about many things rather than a lot about a few things. And we're going to have a lot of audience participation. So, and after that, we will have a Q&A, which we will collate and pick some questions. We may not be able to take every question. So let's get going. Poll 1. And I expect the audience to go to the Hoover app, take the poll. There are questions to answer. Let's put up poll 1. What's the correct way to cut a sandwich? Take the poll, A or B. We want to hear from the audience. We want to hear from people who are online. Join the Hoover app. Take the poll. What do you think? And then we'll come back to these ladies and ask them what they think. Rex, is the poll on? People are taking it? Great. Okay. Mo, what do you think?
You know, I think I'll go with A just because it looks more aesthetically pleasing, I think. But A.
A looks more aesthetically pleasing. So Mo likes things to be aesthetically pleasing. We're getting to know them. Soibi.
I would also go with A, and reason being, I remember my young days of bread and butter sandwiches, and we always used to cut them like that, A.
So you're a creature of habit.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Foz, A or B?
B, because I'm hungry. I hope this one. I'm hungry, I'll eat it anyway. Like,
Well, what's your reason?
because for me, it's just I'm hungry, I want to eat. So however way it can fit my mouth.
It's easier to manage B.
Yeah.
Foza likes things that are manageable. Bite sizes. Amara, tell me.
I wish I could say none. Can I go with none?
Okay. Why not? But tell me why
because
not.
I never get to cut my sandwich. I don't like my sandwich being cut at all.
You like it whole.
Yes, I do. I like it whole.
Perfect answer. Give her a round of applause. Inemesit.
I'll go for B. And the reason why is because from the perspective where I'm sitting, it looks like A isn't equal. So it seems like, to me, if one person takes the lower half, I like justice. So we need to divide it in the middle.
You like justice. Things should be equal. Perfect. We are getting to know them, aren't we? Perfect. Okay. Rex, what does the audience think? Let's publish the poll. We have 91% will go for A. Inemesit, it's okay to be a contrarian.
At that outlier.
I would have probably done B myself, so you're in good company. Thank you very much. That was a good way to start with a great icebreaker that helps us to get to know these ladies a little bit more. And let's get to know them even more. Rex, put up the picture. Mo has a nice picture I want you to put up. So Mo, digital nomad. Can you explain to us who's a digital nomad? Why did you go down this course?
Okay, so let me give the short version because the long version will just keep us here for a while.
Yeah.
So I think it was post-COVID. I had, just like a lot of people, just really been at home. I think there's an, hi, okay. So, I mean, I was just at home for a bit too long. And then my first vacation after that, like what had happened was I tried to redo my house, but everything was just bland, right? So I said, okay, maybe I need a trip. So the closest, I was in the US at the time, the closest place for me to go to was Mexico. Love Mexico. It's like my spirit animal when it comes to countries. So I just, on a whim, just went to Mexico. And then while I was in Mexico, in the boutique hotel I was staying, there was this couple who were Americans, and they had come from America as well. And I asked them when they were leaving, and they said, whenever we feel like. And that concept was so strange to me. And I was like, I don't understand. How can you just say, so you're just going to be here? They were like, yeah, that they're slow traveling and they're digital nomads. This was in January of 2021, and the first time I heard the term myself. So I went and I Googled, and basically it just means someone that works from anywhere, right? And that just started my journey. So I ended up spending 3 months in Mexico, loved it, and I've been traveling full time since then.
Thank you. Is somebody learning a new way to practice law? Thanks, Mo. Soibi, I think we have a photo of you. Coming up. Yeah. Soibi, do you know this photo?
Of course, I remember it so well.
Tell us about it. This was before DOA, right?
Yes, this was
Tell us
before
about
DOA.
it. And tell us whether it's still your side hustle, what's going on. Because people want to know if it's okay, you know, to love fashion, be a lawyer.
Okay.
You know. Tell us. Give us some background.
Mr. Jovide,
they haven't seen these pictures,
here.
by the way.
Okay, I'll tell you a little story on how I found myself here in this picture. I left law school. I got married about the same time that I was leaving law school to the man in the picture. And I
He's a
joined...
dashing-looking guy, by the way.
Thank you very much. I try. And I joined one of the top law firms in Lagos where I was working as a litigation lawyer. I did a couple of years there, and being married, I had some issues with fertility, right? And so I had to take a sabbatical. And that meant that I would stay home for a bit. But anyone who knows me knows that I am such an entrepreneur. I'm such a hard worker. I just couldn't come to terms with the fact that I was going to be at home for a while trying to raise a new family. And I'm also someone who has loved fashion all her life, right? So I thought about and worked towards setting up a luxury store in Lagos. And this picture was taken the day of the launch of that luxury store. But guess what? I went back to my first love, my first passion, which is litigation and dispute resolution. So I closed this up once I was settled on the family front, and we set up DOA. And the rest is history.
Brilliant. Brilliant. A lot of lessons to learn from that. Focus, you know, no idle time, keep yourself busy, work-life balance, you know, and all that. Foza, put out this photo now for Foza. So far, so Foza. That's your book, right?
Yeah, first of all, like, this is such a dope artwork, like so dope, if I do say so myself. It's such an introspective picture, and that's what the book is about. Literally just, I was on Twitter one day, and someone said I'm a privileged person. And it pissed me off so bad, because I was just like, do you know what I've been through, you know, to get to where I was? And I realized that I don't talk about my story, so people assume and tell my story by myself. And I think it was one day I was doing some work for a client, and the other lawyer said they closed the deal. And I was very confused because I closed the deal. So I was like, except I'm dead or someone cloned me. So I was looking at the lawyer and I'm like, I did this work, right? Like, how are you putting your name on it? And I realized that, all right, the mantra of do the work, keep quiet is very hazardous, right? So for me, it was, and one of the things that I struggled with was when I was coming in my career path, I didn't have any model as such on the continent. And also, I had this dream of being Forbes 30 under 30. And when I tried to look at the billionaires and they asked them, so how did you get here? The answer was, it's God, you know. And it used to annoy me. So for me, it was just like, why don't we tell stories? Why don't we document? Why? So for me, the book was that's why I decided at 23 that I was going to write the book. At 28, I said I wasn't going to write it because everybody was like, you're young, what do you have to say? Why are you writing a book? Oh, write it when you're 50, nobody writes at 30. And I was just like, I don't like doing what the rules you guys set. I'll do my stuff. And if nobody buys it, yeah, sure, but I've written it. And it's going to happen every 10 years. And for me, it was a very self-healing journey and therapeutic journey. So that's so far, so Foza.
A lot to learn. I think Foza is saying to us, make your own noise. And she's also saying it's okay to be a contrarian. You don't have to always go with the flow. And I think another message there is that everybody has their own story. You don't know where people are coming from. You don't know where people have been. I'll tell a short story. Once someone came late for an interview in my firm, and they said, this girl is late, should we let her in? I said, let me speak to her, find out why she's late. So she came in, and I said, where are you coming from? She told me, somewhere near Redeem Camp. When did you leave your house? She told me everything. So I said, oh, how was your journey? Where, your transportation? She said, oh, she took a bus from here to here to here to here. So I said, oh, I see what your problem is. So she said, how, sir? I said, no, you shouldn't have gone to this place. You should have gone to Juelegba, and that would have been faster for you. And all my colleagues were like, what do you know about public transportation in Lagos? And I said, you guys don't know where I'm coming from. You think we just arrived Lagos and we bought a car as we were coming. Okay. Now, do we have something on Amara? I think we do. Can we put it up? Amara, have you seen that?
This is the biggest setup ever.
My question for you is, it seems that mental health is a big thing for you.
Yes, it is.
Tell us why. Tell us the backstory. Just share with us. Because it is a big thing now. So anybody who's talking about mental health is talking about something that's major on the table in the workplace.
Okay. So in 2018, I was diagnosed with 3 mental illnesses: clinical depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and anxiety and panic disorders.
Wait, calm down first. One is enough.
You asked me to talk.
No,
you pulled the photo.
Go ahead,
you ambushed me.
Go ahead.
So let me talk.
Just pull in your leg.
So I had gone through back-to-back deaths of loved ones in my family. I had also lost an unborn baby as a result of ectopic pregnancy, which almost took my life. And I lost a tube in the process. I lost my younger sister. I lost my aunt, who is my mom's twin, more like a mother to me. And I lost my grandmom, so it was back-to-back. So after I lost the unborn baby, and it was 50-50, I didn't know it was an ectopic pregnancy. The doctors kept saying, you had a miscarriage, but I was dying slowly. So eventually got to a point where I had to run to another clinic, and I told the man, listen, can you just check for ectopic pregnancy? Because I've been reading, and everything I feel doesn't seem right. But the doctors are saying, hey, you lost the baby, but I feel like I'm still pregnant, because then I have a son, so I know how it feels to be pregnant. So the lab attendant went straight, and I told him, go straight to my left tube, and he did so. And he said, madam, you're right. There's actually a baby in your tube, and guess what? The baby is still alive, and it's in your tube. And as I'm speaking, your tube is rupturing, and in the next 3 hours, I don't know what it's going to be. We have to take you in for surgery. So at that point, I packed my files. I said, I'm not going to do anything with this clinic. I need to go somewhere that I can see a doctor I can trust. And the man said, madam, if you leave this place, I can't even guarantee. I'm like, no, I've been coming here. You didn't diagnose this. And at this point, I want to go somewhere. And then we reached out to a doctor. Luckily, someone was going in for a fibrous surgery. They put her on pause and quickly took me in and saved my life. It was terrible. I was in the theater for hours. It was terrible. But I came out alive. And at that point, my younger sister was actually in the mortuary. We were preparing for her funeral. So you can imagine the family at that time. Everyone was outside the theater, hoping, praying. So when I came out and I saw, I'm still alive and all that, To me, I had gone through the whole trauma. I was ready to bury my sister. I didn't give myself any break. I wanted to get over and done with, because in the family, I'm always the go-to person. Everyone was waiting for Amara to come so we can plan the funeral. So we buried my younger sister, very traumatic. And to me, I'm like, yes, now I'm back. But guess what? My body said, no, it's time to shut down. So one day, I was walking down the stairs, and I just saw myself shutting down. I passed out. Rushed to the clinic, and that was the beginning of my problems. From a clinic to the other, some said it was a heart disease. They had to put a pacemaker in my heart. I needed 20 million to fly me to Germany. My heart was going to stop any moment, blah, blah, blah. And after spending so much, someone pulled us towards seeing a psychiatrist. And he said, you know what? We've done all this. Everything is fine. Have you thought about seeing a psychiatrist? And I'm like, how? Like, what do you mean? And you know, in Nigeria, when you see psychiatrist, everyone is like, you know. So I embraced that, and my husband was like, you know what, let's do this, if this will help. And we saw a psychiatrist, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of the traumas, clinical depression, which has been there for some time, but it was fully blown because of the trauma, and then the irregular heartbeats and all that I was having was just as a result of anxiety disorders as well. So I commenced my, you know, therapy, treatments, and all that. And today, I'm here.
And what you've done is that you have turned your situation into an opportunity to talk to people about, you know, mental health. Please give her a round of applause again. Inemesit, if I put up your own, let's just do it.
My heart was doing boom to the boom to the boom. I was like, which picture did you go to social media?
Okay, it's a nice one. It's a nice one. Isn't that you?
Yes, that's me.
I want you to tell us about this Legal X.
Okay.
What drove it? What's it about? Share with us.
Okay. So Legal X is a one-stop platform that connects lawyers or people providing legal services in Nigeria to Africans at home and in diaspora. That's the short form. So just imagine your regular ride-hailing services, Uber, Bolt, and you're an African living in diaspora and you need access to legal services in Nigeria. What would you naturally do traditionally? You call somebody who is in the States. Maybe you need something in Enugu. You call somebody in Enugu and that person say, yes, I know somebody who is my neighbor's auntie's uncle's friend's auntie's cat, who will now give you legal services but may not necessarily be related to what you need. So Legal X solves that problem. What we do is we tear the veil. We ensure that you are able to get access to legal services with knowing how much it's going to cost you upfront, knowing who is going to provide those services for you before you pay it. Another thing that Legal X also does is that it puts the lawyers on a platform that you don't need to advertise your services, but the customers, the clients, can advertise your services for you. Right now, traditionally, when you do services for your clients will say, thank you very much, you're the best lawyer, you've done this for me, you've done this for me. Right? All we are doing on Legal X is to give the client a microphone to make that loud so that anywhere you are in the world, and I like what Mo was talking about being a digital nomad, meaning you can be on the beach and decide that you want to make money within the next 1 hour and then you get pinged and then somebody can look out for you. Now, how did that start? So in 2015, I live in Port Harcourt, and in 2015, the government at the time had a problem with did not appoint the chief judge of the state. Let's just put it that way. And for a year, there was lack of legal work happening within the courts. And I was in a position where a lot of lawyers will come to me and say, look, you have access to other kinds of jobs. I want to work as a housekeeper. I want to work in other positions. But every time we tried to put them in those roles, people didn't employ them because it was unheard of for you to employ a lawyer in the role of a housekeeper. So what happened was many lawyers started taking it out of their CV. So those that couldn't go to Enugu, couldn't go to other surrounding states, started looking for other kinds of jobs. And I was a bit annoyed that why is it that we are depending on courtroom-generated revenue, and why is there not a form or a way that we can, have this conversation and earn money independent of one politician? At the time, I had 3 children under the age of 3. I was not a stay-at-home mom, but I was struggling. I was struggling to meet up with my counterparts, the males, who were not bound by domestic work, right? So I would manage my home, I would manage my 9 to 5, and I found out that I could take the New York bar exam from sitting at home. So I used technology to learn, teach myself. I never went to school in the US, but I taught myself. Then I'll travel to the US, take the exam, because the exam is in 3 parts. I'll take the exam, pass 2, fail 1, come back, start again. So I did that 3 different times. But while I was doing it and failing, I learned. I saw people, I met people who were coming from as far places as I have, from Asia. People were very determined to have, dual qualification. And there was this talk of technology. And once the conversation of technology started, it triggered a memory. Now, sometime in 2001, I was in year 1, and there was a long strike. And during that strike, I was taking a walk. I don't know if anybody still knows NIT. They were a tech company teaching at the time, and they were promoting, courses to be taken. So I was bored. I'm like, what am I going to do? Okay, let me just go in and take the exam. And it was a national exam, international exam, actually. I took it, like joke, like John. I came first 3. And they gave me a scholarship. And the scholarship was supposed to be 150,000. I'm like, where will I get this money from? But I'm not serious. So when they found out I was not attending, they asked me to come, and they were going to give it to me for free. I went in, found out that it was Oracle. I think it was Oracle 7G or 8G at the time. We can always search it up. And then I took it. It was database administration. At the time, tech was not a buzzword. When I was taking this course, people just said, I remember having a conversation with a classmate, and he said, what are you going to do with this? You're in law, you're studying law, and you're taking something that has nothing to do with your practice. And I remember saying something to him, in the future, we are going to be able to connect the dots. So when I was in New York, failing and feeling frustrated, because I didn't have friends, I didn't go to school there, I was just a Port Harcourt girl struggling to, qualify to practice there, I'll go fail and come back. And I had conversation on the queue, actually. It was on the queue going into the hall. I heard them talking about tech, how they were not going to go through the regular partnership route. I'm going to do this. I'm going to use my laptop. I said, say it again. How? And so I made up my mind that as soon as I passed, I was going to take that information that I had and bring it back. And I had to come back home. I know everybody say, Jackpot, but I had to come back home because, I had family here. So I was just going to practice and do back and forth. So I brought that information home, and I saw that the courtroom-generated revenue thing wasn't working. I started talking to people, like, there's a different way. And that's how the conversation started. We had 13 people in the room at the time, young people, senior lawyers, and then the friction in the room was what generated the idea for Legal X. You had young lawyers say, senior lawyers don't like to teach us anything. They only tell us to go there and take a date, and they never give us real work. The senior lawyers say, every time I send you, I have to do the work over and over. So the idea of allowing the young people who can provide so-called menial jobs, concierge work, in a gig way, on demand, was where the spark came from. And that's how it started.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So we need to look for problems that we can solve, because everywhere there's a problem, there's an opportunity. And even when you are failing, it's an opportunity. You learn something from it. And I think another thing I took from her is no boundaries. Just, keep your mind open. Okay, let's get to some serious questions now. Give them a round of applause again. Every business, I think, is set up to solve a problem. And, my knowledge tells me that the business that solves problems that many other people are not solving always makes money. Makes more money than the other people. So my question to you is, your business model, what problem are you solving? What's that niche? What's that thing that you're bringing to society, to your clients, that you can say, you know, this is your niche? Mo, let's start with you.
Sure. I mean, so Vazi, which is the law firm that I founded, it's basically focused on tech. And you know what? When we started, and just to give a bit of backstory, I was fresh out of law school. I met someone who told me that he wanted to set up a company whereby we could use QR codes to pay for stuff, you know, in the grocery store. And this was 10 years ago. Honestly, the tech industry in Nigeria has really accelerated in the last 5 years. As at 10 years ago, I mean, we see QR codes everywhere, especially post-COVID, right? When you go to the restaurant, just scan the menu. But that was the first time I was actually seeing, and he showed me what the QR code was. That's the first time I was seeing it. But I also, even in as much as I didn't understand the concept behind it, he came to me with very grand ambitions, right? So he was like, oh, you know what? Every supermarket in Nigeria, in Africa, is going to use my product. That product did not succeed, by the way, but that's beside the point. I was taken away by the sheer ambition, right? And I think as lawyers, especially with our training in Nigeria, there's a lot of, will I call it shrinking, that needs to go on, you know? Talk, but not too much, you know. Do things, but don't be over the top, you know. You have to be, there's this, so it just kind of seeps into other areas of life. I didn't see myself as someone that was that ambitious, that I'll just say, oh, I'm just going to create a product that the entire Africa is going to use. Who am I? But that changed my mindset, and I got interested in technology very quickly. So fast forward to Vazi, I realized that one of the core problems that we're solving is that there is a disconnect, or there was a disconnect between the growing tech ecosystem and, you know, legal service delivery. We just, at the time, didn't have people that understood each other. So for us, we just bridged that gap, right? So all of the people who work at Vazi understand technology at its core. And then that way, we're able to have conversations, not just as, I guess, lawyers, but also like real partners in progress as you're building, you know, whatever you're building. So I do think that for us, that conversation, you know, happening, yes, was pretty much what we're trying to solve.
Brilliant. Tech people providing tech legal services. It's not just in the book. They can talk to you about the QR codes, the algorithms, the whatever, and I think you can't get it any better. Soibi, over to you.
Yeah, so for us in DOA, maybe I should start by giving a bit of a background as to how DOA started. We started out about 8 years ago in 2015. 3 of us, Adeleke, Adeni, and myself, came together and we said to ourselves that, you know what, we want to be the likes of we want to be like the new generation, Aluka and Oyebode. We want to be like the new generation, Bawa Igodalu. We want to disrupt the market. We had a conversation about it and we set up DOA. Were we prepared for what we set up for? I would say at the time we didn't have a clear picture of what we were getting into. We didn't know who our competition was at the time. The names I called now, Aluka and Oyebode, BNI, those were not our competitors. We were just starting. We realized the hard way that there were certain rooms that we were not going to be accepted in. After we had set up DOA, because you walk in there, you try and sell yourself, and they let you know all the 10, 15 top law firms, Mr. Jamide, even yours, is already here. And so that made us...
I've been there too,
yes,
by the way.
Yes, that was really tough for us.
Pursuing.
So that made 3 of us go back to the drawing board to say there has to be a space in the market. This market appears to be saturated. but there has to be a space in the market for 3 relatively young lawyers who had a vision to disrupt the system. And we figured out that that was about the same time of the tech boom. And a lot of tech companies were being set up in Nigeria that the top law firms had lost sight of at the time. Why? Because these tech companies were set up with minimum funding, could not possibly afford the legal fees that the top law firms would give. They were also young entrepreneurs. So the entrepreneurs that you see on a Monday morning at 10 a.m. with a pair of rugged jeans, trainers, T-shirts, shades, just the way Mo has it on right now. And so we decided that there clearly is a lacuna here. There is a vacuum here. There are quite a number of tech companies coming into the Nigerian economic market, right? And there are so many lawyers, but very few or almost no lawyers attending to these startup tech companies. So we took advantage of it. We plugged ourselves in. We empowered ourselves with knowledge about tech, not just about tech, but about the future of tech, right? So once we did that, we started to sell DOA to these tech companies. It was easy because they were paying us next to nothing, right? They would come on board. But then we advised most of these tech companies from the point of inception to the point where they become unicorns, right? And I think that's how we created that niche. And because DOA also is like a specialized commercial law firm, you have that end-to-end service for the tech company. You're able to sort out investments for the tech company in the sense that the tech company is about to take investment from a private equity firm. You're able to advise on that.
The transactional side.
Yes, from the transactional side of things. And then if the tech company finds itself in a dispute, either with its investors or with its customers, then the dispute resolution team is right there to resolve it. So we're able to provide that end-to-end service. So I think that also is a unique selling point for us at DOA.
Brilliant. Give her a round of applause, please. How many of you have read the book called Blue Ocean Strategy? How many? You should go and read that book. That's what she was talking about. The red ocean is where the sharks are. The blue ocean is easier to manage. You can survive there. You can probably even make more money because you're not with the sharks. And that's what she was talking about. She realized that this is a red ocean. People are going to eat me up. Let's look for a new ocean. And great strategy. And empowerment with knowledge. Most people go into a practice area knowing they don't know, and staying there as not knowing. You want to wing it. There's no winging in this thing. But the point is, you don't have to be knowledgeable before you decide to start a practice area. You can decide to start a practice area and grow your knowledge in that direction. That's how I do it, and that's how most people do it. If you're fortunate enough to have had some tutelage and worked in a firm in that area, fine, but if not, dig in. Foza.
Hi. So the first 10 years or 12 years, I started working at 18. I started working in the entertainment industry at 18 on the business side. Then after law school, I knew that I wanted to do entertainment law. So coming into the industry, the first thing I noticed was that the word specialization was very frowned against when I came into the industry. And one of the only firm that made me believe that I wasn't crazy, because I'd read Blue Ocean Strategy, was Detail Solicitor. And I remember that I Googled and I saw a law firm that said, we don't do litigation. I was like, what? Right? Because like when I tell people I don't want to, first of all, during the externship, I'll get to, this is how I dress every day. The magistrate said, I don't think you're ever going to make it in law. I was like, all right. Because I was like, the last time I wore my wig and gown was the day they called me to bar. And I don't have shame about it. And every time I speak to a senior lawyer, oh, you should do everything. No. I'm not, you know, one of the things I wrote in my book is I'm one of those fortunate and blessed people that God gave me my vision early in life, right? And I'm like, why am I wasting my time trying to figure out whether I'm good in oil and gas or I can sell a land? And I also wrote in the book that I purposely didn't graduate with a first class from Babcock because I missed it by point something. And I made sure that I don't know what course it was. I think
jurisprudence, perhaps.
Yes, it was jurisprudence. And I knew the arguments that reduced that, right? And for me, it was just like if I graduated with the first class, my family members would give me a job. And I was the firstborn, my dad is dead, you know, I had to fend for the family. I went to Babcock, that probably cost my mother arm, leg, kidney, liver, you know. So it's like they would give me a job. And I was like, you are not going to control my life. But I had to show you that I knew what I was doing, where I was going. I had a supportive mother. I came into the industry, went to this law firm that said they did entertainment law. Got there the first week, I'm doing oil and gas. I was like, give it another 2 days. Still doing family law. I was like, yeah, bounce. So in my mind, I was like, all right, I'm going to just do this law thing. Then I met my partners. They were like, yes, I'm such a solo rider, right? Because of my background. It's like people have done me strong things. So I'm just like, I do things on my own. Then these 2 people convinced me, let's start a law firm. I gave all the excuses. I said, well, we don't have money. I'm broke. You are broke. Why are we starting a law firm? So they're like, oh, don't worry. We're going to do everything virtually. We don't need to have an office. I'm like, RPC is going to find us. They said, don't worry. You know, we created, and then Twitter just started becoming a thing. And that was what all our 100% of our clients for 3 years was from Twitter. I met my partners from Twitter. I met all my clientele from Twitter, Instagram, going out, networking in my industry. And my sole vision was that by the time I was in my 10th year of practice, entertainment, because I knew that the industry right now, their PwC has confused everybody. But,
It's okay. It's a lawyer's crowd.
Sorry, okay.
They have confused everybody. I agree with you.
So, all right.
Give her a round of applause.
So, I mean, it's like, in 2025, they've told us that it's going to be a 4-point-something billion industry. But that's not, for me, it's like, Africa is going to a population of 1-point-something billion with a demographic less than 35, and everybody's creative, right? That means that I'm going to be rich till I die.
You are rich already.
Yeah, so I saw that 10 years ago, and I said, by the time of my 10th year practice, I want to be the leading expert in this. And so that now, last year, I did that by my 5th year. Everybody was like, oh, yeah, the entertainment lawyer. Then it became boring. Then I crashed. Then I was just like, all right, so what's new? What should we do? What's exciting? So part of the book, please buy my book and read it. Plug. So part of it was for me last year. I looked at it and I said, I was no longer getting fulfillment. It wasn't about close. I've closed every type of deals that needed to be closed in the industry, right? So I was just like, what's next? And I saw that. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to retire from legal practice management. So I stepped down from managing partner, stepped down from all my CEO roles. I've been on sabbatical this year. Next year, I found what I want to do.
Foza, you're on sabbatical.
Yeah.
I need to learn from you.
Yeah. I found what I want to do, and I hope that by next year, I would have a panel, sponsored by that vision and telling you what that vision is.
Thanks, Foza. Thanks, Foza. Amara, give me 1 minute. I just want to point out something very quickly. When we spoke to Mo, her mode of business was accidental. Bumped into this couple, one thing led to another. And she can work from anywhere. So sometimes things can happen like that. When we spoke to Soibi, it was iterative. We tried it this way, it wasn't working. We came back to the drawing board. There's nothing wrong with that, and sometimes it happens like that. Foza, early certainty. And it happens like that. From the day you leave law school, you're dead sure what you want to do, and you don't want anybody to sidetrack you. So you need to locate yourself as we continue to have this conversation. Amara, over to you.
Thank you very much. So my story is definitely not a regular one. I never wanted to be a lawyer. I hated lawyers. Growing up.
So did I.
As a little girl growing up, we would go out with my mom, despite the fact that I hated, the fact that my younger sister was taller. And people would always ask, Madam, which one is older in the market? And she said, why this one short, small? Strange, And then I would start explaining, sometimes people say, the younger ones can be, and they say, Madam, this one a lawyer, and I hated it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be a lawyer, So it kept on and on. And I opted for banking and finance, took my WAEC, took my JAMB. Those days you have results being seized. I don't know if you're familiar with that. The result comes out and then you hear for a particular school, the math result has been seized by WAEC. So economics was seized. So when I made my JAMB, my score was quite high. I went to the university to try to see if I could get a supplementary admission. They told my dad, without economics, she can't get in. And I started my usual lawyer's talk, but I also heard that, you can start, school and then take the exam and then wait for, and the man was just looking at me like, that's very, very dangerous because what if you don't make it, you'll be waffed. And then he said, Madam, he told my dad, rather, sir, this is your daughter. She sounds like a lawyer. And I'm wondering with 213 JAMB score, why is she not studying law? And it was at that point, I had no choice. Because I had no economics, I had the right score for law. I'm like, okay, Daddy, let's do it. And we bought the supplementary form within 5 minutes. And I got into the faculty of law. I hated it. Soibi was my classmate. They were the serious ones. They come to class religiously, pass. I failed. I made a third class, definitely. I hated it. I was very unserious. A third class.
Come and shake my hands. 2 of us. Third class family.
So, in school, it was horrible. Soibi knows she was my classmate. We would run from one block to another, and then we had anthropology, and you would run. And if you don't get there with a class of like 500, 400 students, people were over-admitted, you hang by the window, and you try to get something out of the lecture, and then you go back. And then people like Soibi, of course, will go back and read and pass. We still failed. Anyways, I made a third class, proudly. Running with my shameful third class, running everywhere. I tried to get jobs. They're like, oh, Madam, can I see your daughter's result? My daughter is a lawyer and all that. She's good. Now, third class. The big law firms, no one will answer. You're dumb. Fast forward to moving to the Middle East. Got married. My husband was based in Qatar. Moved to Qatar 2011. Got to a place where nobody cared about third class. People would employ you. I was a freelance lawyer. I did a lot in the fashion industry. Took a course in beauty, makeup artistry. Got a diploma. Started working with a lot of models and all that. So fast forward back to Nigeria with jackpot plans to move to Canada. Went back to my university to get my transcript. Ran into an old classmate. Oh, Amara, what's happening? Are you back in Nigeria? I came for my transcript. Oh, I'm here because I heard there's this course in petroleum and environmental law. The school is running. I'm like, this school? Never. I don't even want to hear. He's like, no, seriously. This is a good course. It's blah, blah, blah. We've been working on it. It's been approved. It's something you should think about. And as usual, prompt decisions. Within 10 minutes, I called my husband. I said, sis, my husband, like, you started. You went there to get your transcript. Why are you like this? Now you want to buy. If I said the form is 30K, let me just buy it. You know, I want to teach. I feel like I can, you know, I feel like I want to revenge. You know, this school that dealt with me gave me a third class. And I was like, okay, that's fine. 30K, risk it. I bought the form because the admission was ending the next day. I got the admission. I went back to school. It was the same school, the same lecturers, but my mindset was different. So I took a course in petroleum and environmental law, and it ran for 10 months to clear off my shameful third class so I can get a PGD. Now, when I started this course, I was introduced to arbitration and mediation for the first time. Remember, I told you I hated law, so let's keep that, you know, at the back of our mind. So when I took the first lecture, dispute resolution in the oil and gas industry, I'm like, okay, the classrooms had air conditions, blinds, you know, and all that. The same school, you know, so the environment was different, my mindset was different. I paid attention to my lecturers, it was fun, I was more responsible. And when we finished, the results came out, my GP was a 3.8. I'm like, how? How did I do that? You know, and I didn't make an effort to get that. So someone said to me, why don't you try an LLM? You're already here. So I moved and I got an LLM. And I made a first class. The same university,
Amara,
same lecturer.
You went back and made the first class.
Yes, and I made the first class.
I love that.
You know. Then that birthed the whole idea of ADR practice. I said, okay, if I can come back, maybe this is actually what I should be doing because I paid attention, I love this, and I have a better result.
Perfect.
And I decided to follow this route. But let me conclude with saying I didn't do anything about it. I moved back. And after I broke down, I went through the whole mental issues, traumas, and all that. And I even got suicidal at some point. When I came out, you know, for those who have heard about mental illness, it's like you have a second chance. It's like a marathon all over again, like God. So this is how I would have died, and I wouldn't have done anything. That was how Noise and Blue was birthed, from a place of pain. I started my firm immediately. The trainings were back to back to back. Associate, membership, CEDA accredited mediator, everything was back to back. I started my boutique law firm in Port Harcourt. There was nothing like that. I told people said it was a joke. But today I can say Noise and Blue is doing very well. We focus on ADR practice. We partner with so many law firms. We have lawyers who don't want to be arbitrators, but when they have matters, they need assistance. We consult, they pay us. We do transcriptions. And I also collaborate with centers. I currently serve as director of the Center for Arbitration and Mediation called the Inemesit Center in Port Harcourt. I also work from my own law firm with other law firms. And thanks to the fresh idea which I came up with in December, where for smaller law firms who don't have the plan to expand or go into a big partnership, you want to keep a boutique law firm, but then you want to keep collaborating to build your practice and experience. I started to reach out to bigger law firms to partner with me, bring me in as on a secondment arrangement and all that. And of course, it was a big no. I fought for 6 months. Thank God, finally, 2 weeks ago, Alex saved me. And I would say this because people will say, oh, you're going to intern after 17 years post-call. Whatever you need, if you need an experience, don't be ashamed. Come out, keep pushing. And the big law firms help us collaborate. When we come, there's conflict of interest. You know you're not going to do this matter. Call your younger friends and say, okay, Amara, come. Look at this. I'm recommending you. Do it. And that is the opportunity that Alex gave me. So I'm going to stop here.
We need to move. We have only 20 minutes left. We have only 20 minutes left, unless the chairman will give us extra time. But let's keep going. Inemesit, we still have a lot to talk about.
So it's been overwhelming listening to all these stories in the first place. But I'm going to tell my story and what my firm does. So before I got to study law, my father didn't want me to study law. My father was a doctor in business administration, and he was very adamant. And his reason was this, that you're from the minority. Your name is traditional. You don't have an English name that somebody may mistake you for some other, tribe. Because you're from the minority and because you don't have anybody in our entire village who had ever qualified to practice law, don't do it. You're going to find it hard to be the one breaking through. And I said, okay, well, my mom it was like an illustration of, Sarah and Jacob. So my mom was saying, don't worry, you can do it. You talk a lot at home. You can become a lawyer. So I filled the jam form, Unilag, the first course laws, Unilag, second course law. If I die, I die. And I did not tell him. And my father at the time was a lecturer at University of Lagos. So when my JAMB results, as the time my JAMB results was about to come out, my heart was beating. Luckily for me, I did not need my father to go and meet anybody. You know, I came out, it was on merit, I went to Unilag and I was studying law. My father didn't say, well done. He said, this thing you're doing, when you get there, you find out that life is not as easy as you think it is. And truly, it was hard. It was hard because what somebody else would naturally have, an uncle, a father, somebody to advise you, I had nothing. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I was determined to go through school and also when I get out, find a way around it. I also had to send myself to university because there were some private challenges that happened in school. So I had to learn to, while I'm going to school, I started modeling. I started, seeing the problems in school. At the time, they had the new rule that says we have to wear black and white. So when people were complaining, I saw, there's a business here. So when the lecturer started locking people out of the hall, I would go to the market, buy black and white, and hold it in the class. When they lock you out when it's time for test, you want to buy the uniform, right? So you buy it from me. So I was doing that to university. So that's where my entrepreneurial self started,
Give
right?
a round of applause.
And I did that throughout university. I kept finding myself, I was intentional about making friends with people who had the connects. I knew that I couldn't depend on my family. There was literally nobody that was from my village that had qualified to practice law. And so I started making friends in school. I started being intentional. I say, oh, my father's uncle, where are you going to? When's your holiday? I would come, I would hang out with you. So I was being intentional about that. I remember one epiphanic moment when we were getting called, but I know everybody was excited. For me, I stood in the hall and I turned around, and it was a sea of black and white. And for some reason, my heart just paused. And I said to myself, what am I going to do now? These people were friends while we were in school. Now I'm getting called. They're my competition. What next? And something struck me. I heard in my heart, and he said, be a colored penguin in a sea of black and white.
Brilliant.
Penguins are black and white, but you never know the one who's going to be colored on the belly. And that's where I got the idea that I would always be different. So now you would see me wearing sneakers. I would dress properly. I would dress formally. I don't like court. I don't go to court. But you can identify the sneakers lawyer. If somebody who can see sneakers come and say, that must be Inem, or it's either Inem or. So I intentionally decided to carve a niche for myself. And I decided to do that because I liked to be fun. I didn't like the fact that law was boring. It was stuffy when they were teaching us in school. I have a personality, and I expected that to show. When I got out of school, I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't know who was going to teach me what to do. I didn't know the kind of practice I wanted to study because that was not taught to us in law school. So I sat down and I wrote a list of things that were not taught to me in law school. For example, how to negotiate with your clients. They've taught you, yes, in black and white, but really, all 5 of us are sitting here. If somebody has a brief for $5 million, why would they go to me and not her? What's that extra thing? And so I started studying that for myself. And that's how the business happened. So my business right now focuses on helping tech startups, right? But we are like a one-stop shop. So Lego X is our tech product. But what I've discovered as a result of it is that a lot of lawyers come to us and say, look, we have this brief, but ours is just a 1 point, right? But for us, we have software developers in-house who can help you go. Your idea is all scattered, but we help you in your ideation stage. We can help you, advise you on which way to go. So you don't need to come to lawyers, do your contracting, go somewhere else and figure it out.
I have to. Give her a round of applause.
You took all the time.
I'm sorry. We're running short of time. And we still have a bit to talk about. Put up the next poll. Poll 2, Rex. And let the audience take the poll. Those online, please take this poll, and then we'll come back to you. Which of these is most important for professional success? Diligence, intelligence, perfection. Quickly, you have 30 seconds to take this poll. It's so easy. All you need to do is just pick one. Don't think about it, just pick one. You probably already know what you pick anyway. Okay. Mo, what do you think?
Well, this one is pretty simple. So, diligence.
Mo will go for diligence. Soibi,
I thought you were going to ask me why.
I will come back to you.
I think there's an issue because I keep going after Mo.
Wait, okay, Mo.
And
Mo,
saying
tell
the
me, tell
exact
me why
same
you go
thing
for.
that Mo is
Tell me
saying.
why you will go for diligence.
Okay, so there's something I strongly believe, right? I might not be the most intelligent person in the room or, the most connected, but if there's something to be won, nobody is going to beat me on efforts, right? So, yeah. And it's worked.
Yeah.
100%.
Effort, diligence. Diligence is just as important as intelligence, probably more. Go ahead.
Yes, I agree with Mo again.
Yes.
I think diligence, obviously. I think intelligence is overrated. I think that there's no such thing as perfection. I would definitely pick diligence.
Diligence, because consistency breeds success.
Amara.
I'll go for diligence, definitely.
Inemesit.
Diligence.
Publish the poll. See? This is an interview question, one of the interview questions at Detail. A long time ago, we've changed it now, so in case you're coming for an interview, don't expect this question. But I think 97% of the people here and all the panelists, including me, has, said diligence over intelligence. And that's one thing, a lot of people come out of school, first class, half class, quarter class, and you think that's all you need, right? But a lot of the people that you will think are just average lawyers, this guy didn't even, we didn't even know him when we were in school in tutorial, right? But he just knows when to send that email the right time. He knows the right time to call the client. He knows when to deliver, and he knows when to follow up. And there are never typos in his document. Those kinds of things, right? And there's more to that, but it's a good learning curve for all of us, I think. So let's give ourselves a round of applause. Okay. No successful person that hasn't suffered rejection. And anybody who has been successful at doing one thing and you never suffered rejection, I'm really happy for you. Because I know rejection. How do you deal with rejection, Mo? Just let's go in that same pattern.
One of my most painful rejection was from Detail.
Oh!
You guys, I went for this interview. I was on time. And I thought I did pretty well. I'm not sure what happened. Why?
I will explain to you, Mo. I will explain to you. Did you get to the second? Did you get to the conversation?
Which one?
So after you've done the few things, then you now get to a conversation. Were you in the room? Did you see me in the room?
No, I didn't see you in the room.
That's why we didn't take you.
Really?
Yeah.
So if I applied today,
apply now. You're taking.
Okay. Thank you. Well,
You're taking, but let me tell you, and this is true. We all have different skill sets and gifts in life. Mine is to identify talent. It's one of the things God has given me, right? I have taken people who failed the interview, and they say, but he failed. I say, leave that. I know, I see this person. They say, but you just met this person today. I say, leave it. Give it a try. She has 6 months probation, right? And they end up being high flyers. And guess what? They didn't make first class. But guess what? Some of you here come and poach them 3 years later. True story. True story. And they tell me, Mr. Jamie, I'm going. I said, oh, really? That place you are going to, you sent your CV there 3 years ago, right? They didn't take you. Now, we've brushed you up, we've given you this opportunity. So, Mo, honestly, the day I met you, you've told me this before. Yes. And I said, wow, where was I? I would have identified you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this offline. But
Okay.
now it's too late for employment. It has to be some merger or things like that. Okay. So, Soibi, over to you.
Yeah, so for me, I would say I have a never give up attitude, right? I have obviously faced rejection. I mean, if you're a litigation lawyer and you're a female litigation lawyer, you almost always face rejection every week when you go to court because it's such a male-dominated area of practice, right? But what I usually will do is whenever I face rejection, I take constructive criticism from the issues surrounding that rejection, and I ensure that it doesn't happen again. So for me, never say never, never say die. Always be tenacious and make sure that you learn from every situation.
Brilliant. Foza.
So part of my mental health journey has been the first thing I do is cry. I cry very well in my room. Then I analyze. I try to figure out, because sometimes I used to just try. I don't feel. Then I just realize I'm killing myself because sometimes it's probably not for me. But because I'm too egotistical to recognize that you are like you should fail, because my theory is I shouldn't fail, right? So I cry, I analyze, then I brush up, then I go again. So that's my new strategy.
Brilliant. Amara.
For me, yes, of course, I've been rejected. For me, I always say, whenever I'm rejected or I go through a period of pain, it always births something either creative or successful for me. Long ago, yes, I dwell in, pain and rejection and cry, just like she said. But these days, I draw my lessons and I move. So basically, that's...
Thank you. Inemesit.
So I faced a lot of rejection, and what I've learned to do, I don't take no for an answer. So when you say no to me, I'll just smile, go back into my inner circle, my secret room, think about it, cry a bit, and then come back to you. Even though at the second time I'm coming back to that same position, I don't have as much hopes, but I'm coming back just because you dared to tell me no. So even when you say yes, I just want to prove a point to myself that you can't tell me no and get away with it. And most of the times that I have gotten rejected is not necessarily because of maybe not high level of incompetence. Sometimes it has been because of the male-female friction. So you find out that you've done all the work, you've done everything, and then some person who is sitting down there of the opposite gender wants something else, and you're unwilling to offer that. And that door slams in your face. It keeps slamming in my face over and over and over. And when that happens, I have to learn to say that this is not personal, right? Take the no, take my level of competence, see if I can improve it. If it's not the competence, but it's the person, go around the person, find another person. It always works. It doesn't work at the same time, but it does. But if I get it to my head that, I have to compromise, then it becomes a problem. But I don't take no for an answer.
Brilliant. Okay, give her a round of applause. Chair, are you going to give us small extra time, or we must close at this 4 minutes to go? Done. I'm a good timekeeper. Then we have to take the last question. Let's just do some rapid questions first and see how much time we have to go. Mo, are you a talker or a listener?
Listener.
You're a listener. Great one. Soibi, are you playful or serious?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Foza, are you fixed or flexible?
Extremely flexible.
Amara, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
An extrovert, obviously.
Are you seeing a trend, a pattern? Inemesit, do you use your heart or your mind when you take decisions?
I use my mind.
Your mind?
Yes, I think like a man.
You're a logical person. Yeah. Thank you. Give them a round of applause. Let's talk about generational issues. I'm not from your generation, even though I can identify with your generation. And I'm actually younger than all of you, if you really think about it. But what advice would you give to people in my generation? We want to learn from you. Quickly. You want to start?
Yes, I would like to change the trend.
Yes, change it.
So one advice I'll give to people who are older than us in the older generation, it's not too late to learn. And I have this engagement often with them where they wouldn't want to come to the public to learn like this, but we want to engage with us privately. But please, please be willing to listen, be willing to learn. And it's not as complicated as you think it is. We can break it down.
Listen. Be willing to listen and learn.
Yes.
You break it down for.
Yes.
Amara.
To my older generation, I would say
to them,
accept
not us.
accept creativity. That's all I have to say. Accept creativity. Identify and accept. It's here to stay. There's a change. Accept it.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
My advice is the more power you share, the more powerful you are. So,
wow. Wow, come and take all my power, please. Soibi.
I think my advice would be to say that the sky is enough for all of us to fit into. So allow us.
There's room for everybody.
Exactly. There's room for all of us.
Perfect.
Let us have some of it.
Perfect.
Yeah? Don't eat it all up.
No, I agree with you.
Let us.
Moe.
Well, for me, I would say be less judgmental. I'm a lawyer who has 3 piercings on her face. And, you know, when I meet, like, older lawyers, the first thing is usually, are you a lawyer? I'm like, well, you know, probably better than you, actually. But I do think that it's very important. I work with a lot of Gen Zs in my office, and every day I'm learning something from them. It takes a lot of humility to admit that, you know what, I don't know this thing. And then that's the humility that you need. It will carry you for the rest of your life, right? Like, so you actually just need to cultivate it, because you are never going to be the most intelligent person in the room. You're not going to know everything, but just the ability to be humble and just, you know, keep it moving. I think it's very important. And stop being judgmental.
Thank you very much. Questions? I don't know if we have time for questions. Maybe we can take 1 or 2. We have just a few seconds left. There you permit me, if they came in. Someone says, how did you overcome the newest kid on the block syndrome? Please go ahead.
I'm going to talk to that because I'm probably the youngest here, and I started my practice very young. Oh, yeah.
Moe doesn't do young. Let's not debate that.
So
go ahead.
For me, it was, I learned it late, but it was also, it's a trick called, which is where I learned the power thing, is like, I'm going to admit, I'm humble enough to admit that your experience is needed. I'm also humble enough to allow you teach me, then get you to understand that I can teach you. It's a very long process, but it's very achievable. But the humility also has to come from you, the new kid on the block. So for me, it was a lot of, it came with a few bonds of being bullied, overreading, and, you know, people will take your money and whatnot. But nobody opens their treasure of trust to you if you've not proven yourself.
Great. Great.
So prove yourself as someone that can handle people's trust and access.
Brilliant. Someone says, as a startup, how do you manage pricing? when you start, how do you manage pricing so you can get the best deal? You know, I guess they assume that people would want to shortchange you, and you know, how do you manage that?
So people will shortchange you. It's business, right? So while you're starting out, just don't expect to take all the money in at once, but just be enough, have enough to just survive. Don't expect that, you know, you're going to do the same things that detail can do and get away with it. You can't. So once you've adopted that manner of approach, you would not be profitable so much, but you will survive. And staying in the game, being able to have that grit, staying power is actually the key to success.
Thank you. I see a big sign there that says time's up. So let's obey that. And thank you very much